Today I want to share with you some books, podcasts, and YouTube channels that I refer to and have learned so much from over the last few years that have helped me become a better runner and have better prepared me for this moment right now where I'm going into a new training block and having a ton of fear, ton of doubt if I'm doing things right. Having these resources has been absolutely fantastic, and I want you to learn from them as well. So without further ado, let's get into it. Now, this first book is going to be specific for training because I feel if you're a new runner, this book is especially important, and that is 80-20 running. Now, if you're getting into the sport of running fresh, brand new, you might think that you need to go hard out all the time, and that just simply is not true. But I thought that as well, and that led to a lot of injuries until I read this book. Now, I did hear before reading this book that you should run slow to get fast and all that stuff, but I didn't really believe it because I didn't quite understand why that was true. Having this book, 80-20 Running, really laid out why you should be doing 80% of your runs at that easy pace and 20% at that higher intensity. It does so in a pretty good scientific manner, so if you're into that type of stuff, it's really good. And I think it also has some running training plans in there for you as well for beginner, intermediate, and advanced, I do believe, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a while since I've referred to this book actually, because now that I've learned it, it's how I structure all my training plans is 80% slow, 20% fast, and Bob's your uncle. Now, this next book is a story slash motivation slash science type book. It's called Endure by Alex Hutchinson. And this book does a great job at laying out scientific foundations of fatigue, running, stresses, all that different type of stuff that kind of limit your performance. But then it goes into talking about your central governor. And essentially what that central governor theory is how when someone is on like the verge of death near the end of a marathon, they look so terrible, they're having to stop and walk and like get a bunch of electrolytes for them not to just pass out. But then when they get to that final stretch of the marathon, they muster up that strength and sprint to the finish. How is that true if just a few minutes ago they barely had any energy? The theory is that the central governor is what's holding them back and kind of trying to conserve the energy. It's making sure that they don't give out too much output so that they don't go to complete failure. But the thing is, all great athletes have learned to use that central governor to their advantage. They know when it's the central governor talking and when their body is in actual distress. Now, some professional athletes and some other athletes do push beyond that signal, and that's not good. But the key thing is that we're leaving performance on the table because we're allowing our brains or our central governor to hold us back. Definitely recommend you check out this book. This next book is one that you've probably heard about, and if you haven't heard about the book, you've likely heard about the person. It's another story slash motivation piece that I have to warn you, if you're sensitive to bad language, this might not be the book for you. It's called Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins. Now, essentially, if you haven't heard of David Goggins, he had a really rough childhood, a really rough young adult life, but he turned his life around to become a complete and utter machine. He's gone through Navy SEAL training, he became a Navy SEAL. Now he's jumping out of planes, fighting fires. The man is an absolute machine. But what this book highlights is how someone goes from that really down and out place, being super negative on themselves, thinking that they're worthless essentially, and then turning that around and changing their whole mind. Now, he does it in a very interesting way that I relate to, but not everyone might relate to, and that is essentially saying, this person that I don't want to be is inside of me, and every day I have to work to fight to make sure that that person doesn't get out of me. And it worked for me, it really resonated with me, and if you haven't read that book and you're not sensitive to language, definitely check it out. Before we get talking about the podcast, let's listen to a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. Managing mental health is a marathon, not a sprint. As someone who's found solace in the rhythm of running, I know it's a powerful way to clear the mind and give us a sense of progress. But even with exercise as a solid step, there are times when you hit a wall, the kind that needs more than just a physical push to overcome. This is where my journey intersected with therapy. A while back, I experienced something that left me struggling with an intense fear of choking. Running helped, but it didn't solve it. I needed help to face this, to get to the very core of my fear. That's when I turned to therapy, which introduced me to the EMDR techniques, unlocking a door to healing that I didn't know was there. I've partnered with BetterHelp, who's also sponsoring this video, to share how reaching out made such a profound difference for me. BetterHelp connects you with over 30,000 licensed therapists with a variety of expertise through phone calls, video chats, or messaging, whatever feels right for you. It's therapy that comes to you when you're most comfortable. Starting can seem daunting, but signing up is straightforward. Just fill out a questionnaire, and in most cases, you're matched with a therapist in under 48 hours. No need to worry about finding the right fit immediately. Switching therapists is easy and at no extra cost. I can't express how pivotal therapy has been for me. It's like having a mental health coach alongside your physical training. If you're ready to give your mind the same care you give your body, check out BetterHelp. Use my link, betterhelp.com/Brendon for 10% off your first month. BetterHelp wants to be your sidekick so you can keep breaking down those barriers that prevent you from feeling the best that you can. Now, I'm a big podcast listener. I listen to them on my runs, I listen to them when I'm working, I listen to them when I'm driving. I'm a massive podcast fan. Now, my favorite podcast right now is probably the Huberman Lab podcast. He talks a lot about different types of scientific related things, or actually had David Goggins on there, so lots of motivation pieces. But there are a few podcasts that I think will be extremely applicable to you new runners, and I'm gonna list those all in the link in the description down below, right beside the subscribe button. The next podcast is a running specific one, and this one talks a bit more about the gear and more fun side of running, and that is the Believe in the Run podcast. Believe in the Run has a great YouTube channel where they talk about all sorts of different type of gear, all sorts of different type of running related activities, and the people on there are just very relatable, except for Megan, she's way too fast. Jokes aside, they all seem like really great people, and their podcast is a lot of fun to listen to. This next podcast is very specific to running performance and running training, and that is the Strength Running Podcast. The host of the podcast is Jason Fitzgerald, and he has some great information when it comes to running performance and running training. Specifically, I really enjoy his episodes when he's talking about strength training for runners, because strength training is extremely important for endurance sports. I know that that might seem counterintuitive if you're new to this world, but it's extremely important for injury prevention. But he doesn't only talk about that, he talks about running performance as a whole. It's an extremely well done podcast. Now, if you want to learn more about the running shoes and that type of stuff, I truly believe that, okay, this is going to be a bit of a cheat because I'm going to list two, but Kofuzi, my man Kofuzi, always does a great job on talking about running shoes, and of course, Believe in the Run. And also another cool thing is Ben Johnson. If you follow him on Instagram, he's also starting to have a YouTube channel, so go check him out as well. They talk a lot about running shoes, running gear, and all that good stuff. So if you want to learn more about that, check them out. So the next YouTube channel that I watch quite a bit for endurance sports motivation and just general fitness motivation is Nick Bear. I really enjoy the way that he communicates and the way that he tackles every single challenge with intensity and does it with consistency all the time. He's always pushing himself consistently, new heights. Like, he just ran a 2:39 marathon. That's absolutely incredible. And he shares with us his training, his philosophies, and they just resonate a lot with his content. I learned quite a bit about nutrition, but the main thing with his channel is I take a lot of motivation. There's no way that I could go through a top 3 running YouTube channel and not mention Seth James Damore. We actually just had a chat, he and I, a couple of weeks ago, so if you want to see that, I'll link that in the description down below as well. Some great stuff specifically for you newer runners. He shares a lot about his own training, running shoes, for showing how running and life are connected and building community. So highly recommend you check out Seth James Damore. So there you go, some books, podcasts, and YouTube channels I think would really help you on your beginner runner journey. Or if you're getting back into running, I think these resources are gonna be fantastic for you. Let me know in the comment section down below if you have something else that you think I omitted, some books, some podcasts, some other YouTube channels. I'd really love to hear your opinions down below. And if you haven't already and made it to the end of the video, why not hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you on the next one.